When my in-laws bought us a new car, I thought they were just being generous. But every time we went somewhere, they'd criticize our driving and insist on taking their car. You're just not responsible enough, they said. The day I took the keys back changed everything. I 35 male live in rural Pennsylvania with my wife 34 female, Sarah. We've been married 9 years. We've always been the type to make do with what we have. We work regular jobs. I'm an HVAC, she's a preschool teacher. Not rolling in money, but we're not starving either. We were driving this old 2005 Toyota Corolla for years. Thing rattled like a tin can on the highway. The AC was a joke and you could feel every pothole like it was a punch to the kidneys. Still, it got us from point A to B and it was paid off. We figured we'd keep it running as long as we could. Her dad Rick, 62 male, is retired Army and runs a tight ship. Her mom Diane, 60 female, is the quiet but judgy type. They live in Harrisburg, about an hour away. We don't see them that often, which was always kind of a blessing. One weekend they came over for lunch. We grilled in the backyard, nothing fancy. About halfway through the burgers, Rick pulled out a key fob from his pocket and tossed it on the table. "It's yours," he said, like he was handing me a pen. I blinked. "What?" "We bought you a new car. It's out front." I looked at Sarah, confused. She looked just as surprised as I was. Sure enough, parked on the curb was a 2023 Subaru Outback. Shiny. New plates. Not a scratch on it. Rick went on about how it was for our future and how we deserved something reliable. I didn't know what to say. I didn't ask for it. We didn't talk about it. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little excited. That was the nicest thing anyone had ever given us. We thanked them probably too much. I still remember Rick saying, "You're welcome. Just don't wreck it." At the time, I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. First week, we took the Outback to the grocery store. Sarah posted a photo on Facebook. Within an hour, Diane called asking where we went, what we bought, and how fast I was going. I laughed it off. The next weekend, we planned to go to the lake with friends. When we told her parents, they said, "Why don't we come too? We'll drive." I said we were good. We had the new car, we wanted the time alone. Rick got quiet on the phone, then said, "Just be careful. I don't want you doing anything stupid." That line rubbed me the wrong way. I'm not reckless. I don't drink and drive. I've never even gotten a ticket. But I let it slide. Every time we planned a trip longer than a few miles, they'd offer to drive. They'd say the insurance would be better if Rick was behind the wheel. Or that Diane got carsick unless Rick drove. Or that we didn't know the roads like they did. It stopped feeling like help and started feeling like control. One time, Sarah and I drove to Gettysburg for a weekend away. It was her birthday. Just us. We posted a photo of the battlefield online. And 10 minutes later, Rick texted, "Did you check the oil before leaving?" That same weekend, they showed up at our house unannounced when we weren't home. Said they wanted to make sure the car was okay. They had a spare key. When we got back, I confronted Sarah. I wasn't mad at her. I was just tired of being watched like a damn teenager. She agreed. Said it had been bothering her too, but she didn't want to hurt their feelings. We decided to have a talk. Set boundaries. But before we could, something happened that made me snap. We were planning a trip to Shenandoah National Park. 3-day weekend. I was looking forward to it for weeks. Hiking, quiet time, fresh air. Sarah was excited too. We packed the Outback the night before. Early the next morning, we were about to pull out of the driveway when Rick and Diane pulled in behind us. Blocked us in. They got out like it was normal. Rick walked right up and said, "We'll drive." I printed the map already. I said no firmly. "We're good. Thanks, but we're taking our car." Rick looked at me like I'd insulted his mother. "Don't be ridiculous. You're not ready to handle a long trip like this." Like I was a damn child. I told him, "It's our car." He looked at me, stone-faced, and said, "No. It's our car. We paid for it. We're just letting you use it." That flipped a switch in me. Everything clicked. They didn't give us a gift. They gave us a leash. And I was done. I told them to leave. Right there in the driveway. Rick refused. Said we were being ungrateful. Sarah stepped in then, shaking. "Dad, we appreciate what you did, but this is too much. We're taking the trip alone. Please respect that." They left furious. We took the trip. It was a little awkward at first, but by the second day it felt like we had taken our lives back. We didn't talk about them. We didn't check our phones. We just breathed. But I knew I couldn't let it go. Not yet. Found out the title wasn't even in our name. It was in Rick's. I was livid. That night, Sarah and I made the decision. We were giving the car back. I didn't want it. I didn't care how new it was. I'd rather walk to work every day than feel like someone else owned my time. The next day, I called Rick. I'm bringing the car back. You can keep it. There was silence on the line. You're being stupid, he finally said. Do you have any idea what that car is worth? I do. It's not worth my marriage. Then I hung up. After I hung up on Rick, I felt this weird mix of peace and dread. Like I'd just done something that needed doing, but also kicked a hornet's nest. Sarah was quiet all evening. I knew she was torn. I also knew her relationship with her dad was complicated, respect mixed with fear. But she stood by me and I could see it in her eyes that she was relieved too. The next morning, I drove the Outback to Rick and Diane's house. I didn't say a word when I got there. Just parked it in their driveway, put the keys in an envelope and dropped it through their front door mail slot with a note that said, "We're done." I took the train back home. Didn't even care about the cost. That's when the messages started. At first, it was the usual guilt trip crap. Ungrateful. Disrespectful. You threw away a blessing. Then it turned into straight-up threats. You think you can cut us off and just live your life? Diane posted a long rant on Facebook. She didn't mention our names, but everyone knew. Talking about how they sacrificed for us and how we were emotionally unstable. Her church friends commented things like, "You're better off without toxic people in your life," and prayers for your family. Sarah's cousin even messaged her privately to ask, "Did you really throw their car in their faces?" One afternoon, about 2 weeks after we gave the car back, we came home from work and found our old Corolla gone. I thought maybe it got towed or something. But there was no ticket. No boot. Nothing. We checked the security camera our neighbor has pointed toward the street. And guess who it showed? Rick. Broad daylight. Tow truck. Calm as ever. He just took our car. I completely lost it. I called him. No answer. I called the tow company and after some runaround, they admitted they were asked to move it by someone claiming to be the owner and said they were told it was abandoned. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That car was in my name. Always had been. I called the cops. They said it was a civil issue and I had to take it to small claims. Sarah broke down crying that night. She felt like it was her fault. Like she brought this on us. I told her none of this was her fault. Rick was doing this because he hated not being in control. He couldn't make us take the new car, so he was going to punish us however he could. I filed a police report and went to the courthouse to file the small claims paperwork. It wasn't about the money. It was about standing up for ourselves. Then we did something drastic. Phone. Email. Social media. No contact. The silence felt weird at first. Like we were waiting for something to explode. It did. She works at a small private preschool. Tight-knit, friendly place. The director sat her down and said there had been concerning messages sent from someone claiming to be her father, accusing her of mental instability and saying she wasn't fit to work with children. He emailed the school. Attached old photos of her in college from Facebook tried to make her look bad. Luckily, the director knew Sarah. She'd worked there for years. But still, it rattled her. We realized Rick wasn't going to stop. He was going to try to poison every part of our lives. I got scared for a while. Not scared of violence, Rick wasn't that type. Scared of what he'd try next. Calling my boss? Showing up at our house again? Digging up stuff from our past? So we took a step we hadn't even considered before. Just a basic consultation. The guy listened, took notes, then said, "This is harassment. You could file for a restraining order." Sarah didn't want to. At least not yet. But just having the legal option gave us a little bit of power back. Then the twist came. One afternoon I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't pick up, but I was expecting a call about some tools I'd ordered from a local shop. It was Rick's brother. We'll call him Uncle Jim. Jim said, "I'm not calling to defend him. I just think you should know something." I braced myself. Then Jim dropped the bomb. Apparently, he leased it under his name. Never made more than 2 payments. The dealership had been trying to repossess it for over a month. Rick gave it to us to make himself look generous, but the whole thing was just an ego trip. That's why he was so obsessed with who drove it. That's why it was never in our name. He never intended to actually give us anything. He just wanted to look like a savior. And when we gave it back, he couldn't afford to keep the payments going. That's why he snapped. That's why he took our old car. That's why he was doing all this. He was spiraling. Everything made sense. We had unknowingly exposed him. Just by saying no, we embarrassed him. And that was enough to set this all off. About a week after Uncle Jim's call, we started getting strange mail. At first, it was just stuff from the DMV addressed to Rick. but sent to our house. Then came a letter from a collections agency. It was about the Subaru. Apparently, Rick had used our address when he leased the car, which meant now that he had defaulted, they thought we were the ones who owed the money. I called the number on the letter and explained everything. After a long hold, they told me bluntly, if the vehicle was kept at your property and driven by you, you may still be considered liable for damages. I damn near lost it. We had returned that car. We hadn't even known he'd put our address on the lease. It was fraud, plain and simple. I called our lawyer. He sighed, said, he dragged you into this deeper than I thought. Then he suggested we run a credit report on ourselves. So we did. And that's when everything spiraled. Recent. Like within the last 2 months. She hadn't applied for anything. We dug deeper. Turns out Rick had tried to open a joint line of credit using Sarah's social and name. We were stunned. It wasn't just about the car anymore. He was trying to use her identity. The lawyer said if we had waited longer to act, he might have succeeded. I remember Sarah sitting on the kitchen floor that night, holding her head in her hands, saying, he's my dad. Why would he do this to me? I didn't have an answer. We went full lockdown mode after that. Froze our credit. Got the lawyer to draft a formal cease and desist. Filed a report with the FTC. Not for us. For Rick. Apparently, after we returned the car and refused to take it back, he tried to keep it for himself again. But he couldn't keep up with payments. The car got repossessed right off his lawn. Diane called Sarah after that from a burner number. Left a voicemail crying. Said Rick was losing it. That he blamed us for everything falling apart. We didn't respond. No return address. Just dropped in our mailbox one morning. Inside was a flash drive. No note. No explanation. Just a flash drive. I took it to work and opened it up in the break room on one of the communal laptops. Inside was a folder titled, For the Court. It was a collection of emails and documents, some real, some clearly fake, that Rick had put together. Stuff meant to make Sarah look mentally unstable. Screenshots of text messages that had been edited. Fake emails she'd never written. A typed-out diary entry with her name on it but in a font she's never used in her life. The man was building a case. Against his own daughter. It wasn't just petty anymore. It was targeted. Planned. Evil. Our lawyer's tone changed after that. He told us we had enough for a protection order. Not just a restraining order, an actual, court-ordered barrier to keep Rick away from us, our jobs, our property. Sarah was scared. So was I. We filed. The court date was set 2 weeks out. And that's when Rick made his last move. I was at the HVAC supply store, picking up coils for a unit repair. He just walked in. Calm. Cold. Wearing that same press jacket he always wore. You happy now, he said. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I was in shock. You tore this family apart. He said it like I was the one who had done something wrong. Like I was the manipulator. He leaned in and said, she's going to need me again someday. You? You'll be gone. Then he turned and walked out. I didn't follow him. I called my boss. Then I called the lawyer. That visit? That was the final nail. Text messages. Emails. Voicemails. Credit reports. The flash drive. And now eyewitnesses at my job who saw him confront me. Rick had always been obsessed with control. But when he lost it, he couldn't handle it. And he was willing to destroy anyone to get it back. Even his own daughter. The court date came fast. Too fast. Sarah didn't sleep the night before. I didn't either. The courthouse was about 30 minutes away. We dressed nice but not flashy. Just enough to look serious. Rick showed up alone. Diane didn't come. He walked in like he owned the place, like this was all just some misunderstanding. He didn't even look at Sarah. Just sat down, flipping through a manila folder like he was in charge. Our lawyer was ready. He had stacks of printouts, photos, copies of emails, and the flash drive converted into documents. When the judge called us up, Rick tried to interrupt. Judge shut him down immediately. Then our lawyer began. He laid it all out. Calm. Simple. Clean. How Rick had used our address on a lease without telling us. Tried to open credit in Sarah's name. Sent fake emails to her job. Left threats and lies on social media. Stolen our old car from our own driveway. Showed up at my job and harassed me. Created a fake digital file trying to paint Sarah as mentally unwell. The judge asked Rick if he had anything to say. Rick stood up and said, I was trying to protect my daughter from a weak man. That's what he said. He didn't deny a thing. He just blamed it all on me. Sarah's hands were shaking. I put my hand over hers, but she didn't even look at me. Then she stood up, without being asked. She looked straight at Rick and said, "You ruined every memory I ever had of you." The courtroom was dead silent. She went on, voice steady but quiet. Said how she always felt like she had to be perfect. That she couldn't ever say no. That Rick always gave with one hand and took back with the other. Then she said something I didn't even know. When I was 15, I tried to run away. And the reason I didn't was because Mom said you'd find me and drag me back by my hair. She sat back down, eyes forward, no tears. The judge nodded and said, "This is not just harassment. This is psychological warfare." And just like that, the protection order was granted. 3 years. 0 contact. Violations would lead to arrest. Rick had to surrender any weapons he owned. Couldn't come within 500 feet of either of us. No calls. No messages. No third-party contact. But that wasn't the end. Sarah decided to press charges for identity theft. It wasn't about revenge, she said. It was about accountability. The police investigated the fake credit app and the forged documents. There was enough to file formal charges. Rick was arrested 4 weeks later. It made the local news. Retired Army vet. Harassment. Identity theft. Fraud. The whole package. Diane tried to do damage control. Posted online that it was all a misunderstanding. Claimed we were twisting things. No one believed her. Not after the court documents were public. I'll admit it. I let it go too long. I ignored the red flags because I didn't want to rock the boat. I wanted peace so bad I let Sarah suffer in silence. I should have stood up earlier. I should have said no sooner. So I apologized to her. Not once. Not like a Hallmark movie. I mean, really apologized. For not seeing it. For letting her carry it alone. And I promised that I'd never, ever stay quiet again. And I've kept that promise. We still don't own a new car. After all that, we sold the Corolla. Didn't feel right driving it anymore after Rick had touched it. Instead, we bought an old truck. Not pretty. Loud. No Bluetooth. No screens. But it's ours. And every time I start it, I feel free. Rick went to court. Took a plea deal. No jail, but a felony on record. Can't own firearms anymore. Can't vote. Can't hide from what he did. Diane moved out. I guess she finally saw who he really was. Or maybe she always knew. We haven't heard from either of them in over a year. Sarah's healing. She's in therapy now. So am I. Sometimes you don't get the family you deserve. But you do get to choose how much damage they're allowed to do. And when you finally say no, really say it, it changes everything.